The finale is here, and a finale it was. Alright, so we got the season finale of Lovecraft Country titled Full Circle, and if you've been following along with this series like I have, you gotta be excited about this episode because we've had a lot of ups and downs with this series. More ups than downs, but the downs were pretty bad downs, and I'm excited that it was a payoff like it was, and it brought everything back around just like the title says, full circle, and we got a lot to talk about, and I'm pretty sure by now you've watched the episode, but let's do a quick recap. So the episode starts off with them saving Dee from the Jigabobo curse, and she ends up losing an arm, and she's upset about that. Well, while they were performing the ritual, Tick and Letty went to the ancestral realm, and then they got instructions on a big plan that they could do that could possibly save his whole family and stop Christina. Well, when they explain the plan to everybody, Montrose is like, nope, not feeling it, because all season he's just been trying to stop Tick from committing suicide, basically. And in order for the plan to work, Tick has to do that. First part of the plan, they gotta go get a piece from Titus. So they summon him through using the Book of Names, and he's strong enough somehow to like dip on him, because he ends up telling Christina that they got the Book of Names right before they bring him back, and Tick kills him and take the piece that he needs. And that was a big moment for Tick, because throughout this whole show he's been working desperately on how to save himself, and now he's accepted that he's gonna have to sacrifice himself to save everybody else that he cares so much about. Christina's understandably pissed off, and on the way out she takes Letty's protection spell from him. So the next part of the episode, we got two things going on at once. On one side we got Tick talking to G.I., and he's trying to convince her to come along to help with the final phase of the plan, and G.I. seems down and defeated, but Tick explains to her, you know, we can go out heroes, and after some very inspiring dialogue, she agrees to join along. While that's happening, we also get a shot of Ruby and Letty at the cemetery and at their mother's grave, and Letty comes clean to Ruby like, man, I didn't want to miss the funeral, but I was in jail. And she tells her that she doesn't like how the relationship is, and they kind of have a moment, but at the end of the moment, Ruby feels like, you still trying to use me, because Letty asked her to get a piece of Christina because they need it for their plan to work, and even though Montrose and everybody told Letty not to, Letty thought she was having a moment by bringing her sister in on something and not keeping a secret from her, which has been a big problem for them. But Ruby didn't take it that way. She took it as, here you go, you only said this stuff because you want me to do something for you. Well, Ruby goes on to try to do it for her anyway, even though she told her no, and she fails miserably, and she was a character in this show that I liked, but I also didn't like, and we'll talk about that more. So while they're all packing up, getting ready to go, Ruby shows up and jumps in, and she's like, I'm down with my family. And then they have this nice calm before the storm type scene where they're driving to the Braithwaite Manor, and they are all in the car and they're singing this song, and it's a very happy and light moment that I felt was very much needed, because everything has been so chaotic up until this point. But when they get there, while they're setting up for everything, they find out that Ruby's dead, and Christina has taken her body, and she's basically messed up their whole little plan that they had going. And her and Letty get to throw in some good hands, but Letty just couldn't hang with her. Ruby was too big and too strong. And I wonder, when you become the person, well, I guess you do get their strength, because when she was William, she whooped them cops. So I guess she did have Ruby's strength, and that's why she was able to toss Letty to the point where she ended up throwing out the window and killing him. So while Tick is being strung up, getting ready to be sacrificed, the rest of the group get jumped. And, you know, Hippolyta get her moment to shine, and she throwing some good hands, and I still don't like Hippolyta, and we're going to talk about that more too. And G.I. was holding her own, but my man Montrose, if you were paying attention, this was a fast-cutting fight scene. Man, Montrose got a couple good licks, but every time they flash back, he was progressively more and more getting stomped out. When Tick get hoisted up, getting ready to have the final moments, everybody gets brought out, and he realized that, oh, they didn't caught everybody, and Montrose get brought out on a makeshift stretcher because they didn't slap my boy, NyQuil'd him. But anyway, so as Tick sees all this, he doesn't see Letty, and he starts to panic, because he's like, hey, the plan ain't gonna work. And then it's like that fear sets in, and like, I was okay with sacrificing myself if the plan was gonna work, but now it looks like the plan isn't gonna work, so I'm not cool with just dying for the sake of dying. And he panics and flips out, asking where is Letty. As soon as the moon was at its highest point, Christina didn't waste no time. And I actually like that, because how many times have we seen the villain monologue on, and then it gives the protagonist time to find a back door to the back door to the back door plan and stop him. But she got right to it and sliced my man open with great precision, which further illustrated why she was able to whoop Letty, because the way she cut that man open, she probably would have whooped Hippolyta. So while Christina's forming the ritual, bathing in Tick's blood, speaking in the ancient tongue of Abraham or Eve or whatever it is. Letty wakes up and she has a new protection spell on. She comes charging in. The ritual seemed like it was a success because Christina's clothes turn all red and she sucks the life out of Tick. But right while Tick is dying, he gets to see that Letty is alive. So Letty comes in with the final part of the plan and she runs the sword through Christina. While she's doing this, she starts chanting her ritual and they start to realize it ain't gonna work because when she thought she had Christina's blood in the vial, Tick didn't take that. He took I don't know whose blood. So he wasn't connected to Christina anymore. So it wasn't working. And at this moment, while the spell is trying its best to bind, Gia gets an aha moment, no pun intended, where she sees the darkness that the shaman spoke of and she's like, this is my destiny. This is why I'm here. This is what I must do. And speaking of that, this show has a very big thing about destiny and we'll speak more on that later too. So Gia steps into the darkness, which allows her tentacles to connect Tick and Christina together, which allows them to finish the spell, which is gonna bind all white people in the world from using magic. And right as they complete the spell, Montrose wakes up and he has one of the most powerful moments in the whole episode to me. He sees Tick laying there dead on the apparatus and he goes over to him and he's struggling with himself to accept that his son is dead. And he's calling out to him like, get up Tick, come on Tick, let's go home Tick. And you know, Montrose's character has been hardened over the whole season and we got to see why he was so hard. So to see him having this moment where I finally got the one thing I wanted, which was a bomb, my son, he's taken from me. And then we get this sad letter that Tick left Montrose explaining why he did it, because he knew he'd never let him do it. So in the final scene we get Christina being crushed up on the rubble and she's wheezing and gasping for breath, asking for help. And then here comes Dee with her mole monster and then Christina asks her for help. Well, at this moment we get the reveal that Dee has the robot arm that was made for her by Hippolyta, which we're going to speak more on in just a minute. Dee reaches down to Christina after saying you still don't get it, and she uses her new robot arm and crushes Christina's throat. Now that we got the recap out the way, let's talk about the things that I liked and did not like about this show. First off, I do not like rush character development, like I keep saying, and Hippolyta was the worst rush character in this show. She gets all this ability and all this insight into the future, into all this stuff in the multiverse, and she's able to make Dee a robot arm, and she's able to make a comic book that's like digitally print quality, and she can do all this stuff. But when they go to the final plan, the best thing she can do is show up with salt in hands. I'm like, come on man, she could have made some weapons, she could have told Christina a different way to do it. It's so much more stuff that she could have did, and they made her this big powerful grand character, and in the end, why? For what? You contributed nothing other than giving Dee a robot arm. And now, speaking of that, when did Dee become a murderer? Like, she was this sweet, innocent, nice girl, and then she gets this robot arm, and the first thing she thinks to do is to crush somebody's throat, like, make them suffer and kill them. Like, come on, what kind of, I don't know. That was wild to me, and I did not like it. Maybe it's true to the actual book, and maybe I need to read the book, but me personally, I didn't like it. You just gonna become a cold-hearted killer just because you got a robot arm now and a mole monster? Why? Another thing I didn't like was Ruby. Now, like I said, I liked and disliked her, meaning the actress who plays Ruby kills it. She does the best with every line that she's given, and she has a dominant presence when she's on screen. But the show didn't do Ruby justice. What I mean by that is Ruby was so ambitious in the beginning. She wanted to be the first black woman to work in that white store, and she had this impressive resume, and she was always pushing to be better and do more. Well, when she gets the ability to be around the Braithwaites, and she gets to walk in white people's skin, and she gets to be around one of the most magic people ever, she doesn't do anything with it. Like, first thing I would have did was like learn as much magic and as many spells, and I'd have been cold. I'd have been a little sorcerer running around that thing. And it's like she didn't. And in the end, she shows her hand to Christina after being this smooth, on her toes, sharp-witted person to like showing her hand when she's trying to steal Christina's blood and getting herself caught and getting killed. It was such a buildup of nothing that led to nothing. But outside of those gripes, it ain't much bad I can say about this show. It had phenomenal acting across the board with very memorable characters like Tick and Letty. And Christina was a wonderful villain who was like, I just really want to achieve my goal. Don't matter what it cost and who it cost. I just want to achieve my goal. And it was like a purity in the evil way of thinking, I guess I would say. The show took us on this epic journey that not only dug into magic, but also sci-fi, and had an Indiana Jones feel at points, and it had horror elements. And then my favorite thing was that it was while being entertaining, it was also a teaching platform, because the real monster in this show was racism, and they did a great job portraying the evils and the hatred that some people can have towards people and how that can affect other people. And then also the soundtrack on this show was top notch, whether it be the Catching Fire poem, or they play some I don't know, juke joint song. I don't know, the soundtrack was just spot on, and it always matched the scene, and it just elevated the mood. And now that the season is done, I know there isn't anything out there so far for season 2, but I really hope they figure out a way to do it. Whether they go for it and show us Tick's son and the current times, and maybe they can speak on BLM and the Trump stuff and Make America Great. I don't know what they could do with it, but they could do that route, or they could go back and show us Montrose's story and how he was chasing after the Braithwaite magic and what made him so cold and bitter and so against magic. But anyway, I hope they do something. But now that the season is done, I'll rate it a solid 4.5 out of 5 stars. Alright, so that's it for Lovecraft Country. The season is done, so for the comment convo today, I want y'all to let me know, do y'all want a season 2? If not, why not? Whatever you think, comment below and let me know. Now, as always, if you liked this video and you thought it rocked, like, comment, and subscribe to see more from me, Mike Proc. Later.